Hello, William Yaxley, and welcome to another assembly. And it's the end of another week, or towards the end of another week for you. And I hope you've had a really good week. And we've been thinking about our new value in our new half term. And that new value is peace. And we've been doing that as a sign, peace. And in church, we share the peace together. It's something that we do before we come to communion, before we take the bread and the wine together. We have something called the peace. And once a month in church, we host Deaf Church, which are a group of deaf Christians who move around to different churches. And we have someone in church who comes and signs to them once a month, and they go around other churches the other month. And so we've been learning and using the sign language for the peace. And the peace is what you say after when Mrs. Call in your assembly. And it's peace be with you. And you also respond, don't you? And also with you. So in church, we've been doing peace be with you. So it's a great thing to think about as we're thinking about peace in this half term. We're thinking about what peace might mean. And we've thought about lots of different things to do with peace. And I've answered some of your questions. I've at least tried to answer some of your questions over the last couple of weeks as well. You might have some more questions in there, but you're going to have to save them up just for a little while because I'm going away this week, and then I'm back for a little bit and I've got to go away again at the end of March. But I will get in at some point and pick up your questions. So don't forget to put them back, put some new ones actually into the question box. To our big question box, we think about the big questions that we want to ask, and thinking about prayer as well, and the questions and the things that we can give and bring to God in prayer, because there is so much going on in the world at the moment, as you will very well know. So back to our topic of peace, and I was thinking about what is it that we could talk about this week. And I thought straight away about a story which I will no doubt have told you before, but it's a story that's in 3 of the 4 Gospels. So it's in Matthew, Mark and Luke. It's not found in John, but we find in the Bible a lot of the things that are found in Matthew, Mark, Luke are not always found in John, because John's quite a different kind of a Gospel. And we remember our Gospels are an account of Jesus' life, about his time on earth. And of course, we're still in Lent. We're in that purple season, that preparation time as we move towards Easter, well, Holy Week first of all, and then as we move towards Easter and we think about the death and resurrection of Jesus. So at the moment, we're in this Lent season and we're thinking about peace, and we're bringing all those things together and remembering all of that today. But so we go back to our Gospel. So this story is in Matthew, Mark and Luke. And it's slightly different in the 3 Gospels, because you'll find that as you read the different Gospels, you'll find that they're slightly different in their accounts. Because if anything happened, we all give a slightly different account of what happened, because we see it from the view of where we're standing, but we also see it from our own viewpoints as well. And Matthew, Mark and Luke all came with very different viewpoints into their writing of the Gospels, into the account of Jesus and Jesus' life, and the Gospels mean good news. So let's think about our story today. I wonder if you've ever been on a boat. I wonder if you like going on boats or not. Some people really don't like going on boats. Some people love going on boats and going on a river or on the sea. Well, I've been on boats a few times in my life. I lived near to the coastline in Cornwall for quite a few years, so I'm quite used to the sea. But I'm not the best traveller on the sea, if I'm honest. But I've been on different kinds of boats, and I guess probably the longest journey that I've ever done on a boat is when I went to Guernsey. Now, my husband's family are from Guernsey. They don't all live there anymore. Most of them live here on the mainland, but a lot of them were at that point in Guernsey. So we would go back and forwards to Guernsey often for our holidays. And getting on a boat to go to Guernsey, I guess, takes about 2 to 3 hours. Now, we went on quite a few occasions, but I can only remember one occasion when the sea was calm. All the others, it was a little bit like this, and it was a little bit hard work. But we got there safely, which is the main thing. I've been to Holland on a hovercraft. That was good fun. I've been to the Isle of Wight on a hovercraft as well. That was good fun. I've been on a couple of cruises as well, and they're completely different because you're on a really big boat on a cruise, and you've got this kind of mini town or mini city on board this ship, because you've got shops, you've got places to eat, you've got your sleeping places, so many different things on cruises. And one of the cruises we did was we went to Norway, and it was beautiful. It's a little bit later than this time of the year. It was May, and we went to see the apple blossoms. It's called the Apple Blossom Cruise. And we had a really good cruise all but one day. And on that one day, I didn't want to get out of bed even to go to breakfast because it was so rough. So we can think, maybe if we've been on a boat, about what that was like. Was the sea or the water really calm and still? Or was it a little bit like this, and your boat went up and your boat went down? Well, I've shown you these before. We made these during our online services during the height of the pandemic when we couldn't meet in church. We made paper boats. I'm going to use my paper boat for our story today. So our story today takes place, oh, nearly dropping my boat, that's not good, as you will guess, on water. And Jesus and his friends got into the boat because they wanted to go over to the other side. Now remember, of course, in those days we didn't have aeroplanes or cars or the things that we have and use for travel. They had to go in a boat if they wanted to go across water anyway, or they had to take a really long walk around the outside. And so Jesus and his friends got into the boat. It was a beautiful, calm and sunny day. As I look out now, it's Monday and the sun is setting, but it has been an absolutely beautiful day. It's been a bit like a good spring day here. And we've not had any rain, which has been amazing. And I can see the sun is setting now. It's a beautiful sunset as well. So they started off getting into their boat and all was well. Now we need to remember that a lot of Jesus' friends were fishermen. He'd called them from their jobs of being fishermen. And so they were quite used to the sea. They were quite used to different conditions because that was how they earned their living, by going out in their boats and fishing. And so they were going along, and Jesus was in the back of the boat. He was having a sleep because if we remember from all that he did in his day job, he was just, everybody wanted to see him, everybody wanted to talk to him. So everywhere he went, and not just his day job, as I said, his whole life really, everywhere he went, people wanted to talk to him, asked him for healing, wanted them to teach. There are so many different things that Jesus had to do, and he was tired. And so Jesus settled down in the boat for a sleep, and his friends were taking him across this river. But as they got part way over, they started to see the clouds come in the sky. And you know, sometimes we can see that coming across the fens, can't we? Because it's so flat that we can see the weather literally coming towards us. And they could see that the clouds were gathering. The skies were getting darker and darker and darker. And I think the fishermen amongst them must start to think, this is not great news for our boat. Now their boat would have been a little bit better than my paper boat, but it wouldn't be like the boats that we have today. It wouldn't be like the ships that I've gone across and I've done cruises on. Wouldn't even be like the ones that I've been to Guernsey on. They wouldn't have been as sturdy as those. So Jesus and his friends are in this boat, and the friends start to look at the sky and they start to see that the weather is not good. And then the weather comes in and the winds start to blow. Okay, can you do a little blowing at this point? Well done. And the waves start to get bigger and bigger with some really big waves. Bit of splashing maybe at this point with the waves. And maybe there's even thunder and lightning in the skies. Oh my goodness, so we've got wind, we've got waves, and we've got thunder and lightning. And probably then the rain starts to come down as well. We know those days, don't we? And this poor boat with all these people on it is not doing particularly well. It's starting to go up and down with the waves. And those people on board, except for Jesus, I have to say, are starting to get a little bit worried about their boat. And they start to talk to each other and say, what should we do? Should we wake up Jesus? What should we do? And they're starting to get more and more worried. Now I wonder, have you been, or are you in a situation where you're getting increasingly worried about something? Maybe in the middle of our pandemic when we were in lockdown. Maybe at the moment as you look at the news of Ukraine. I wonder whether sometimes you just feel that anxiety rising a little bit inside you. I wonder what you do at that point. We're going to come back to that in a minute, so hold that thought. But let's go back to our boat. I wonder if there were any other boats and what they were doing at the time. They're smaller boats still. So Jesus and his friends are in this boat. The weather is really not looking good. The waves are getting higher and higher, and Jesus' friends are getting more and more scared. So eventually they go and they wake Jesus. Jesus has slept through all of this. Are you somebody who can sleep through even the worst thunderstorm? Well, Jesus slept through all the weather that's happening around him. And the disciples wake him and say, Jesus, don't you care about what's going on around you? Don't you care about the wind and the waves and the rain and the storm? Because we might be in danger in our boat. And you know, Jesus wasn't the least bit worried. Because where did Jesus put his faith and his trust? In God, his heavenly Father. And so Jesus gets a little bit irritated with the disciples, going, why don't you trust me yet? Why don't you trust in God yet? You've seen so many amazing things happen. And then Jesus stands up in that boat and he says to the winds and to the waves and to the storm, peace, be still. And it did. It was only quiet and calm again. The boat was safe again. All the disciples were safe again. And Jesus had just said, peace, be still. That's all he'd said. And when the disciples saw this, when Jesus' friends saw this, they started to talk to each other. And they said to each other, who is this person that can make the winds and the waves be still? Who is this person who can make the winds and the waves be still? Well, we know that person is Jesus. Jesus is God's Son. And we know that Jesus was sent to be on earth with us, to show God around us in our everyday. And when Jesus said, peace, be still, the storm indeed was still and there was peace. I love this story because it helps me in my own life. When things get difficult or challenging or there's just too much work to be done, I just think about Jesus saying, peace, be still. And I think about my mounting deadlines. I think about the things I've got to do. And I just think, peace, be still. Because what I know is that God has everything in his hands. That even when there is too much work for me, God already knows that. And he's planned ahead. And something will happen that will mean that I can get that work done. So let's go back to your situation now. Let's go back to my question of, have you ever had those times when you can just feel that fear or anxiety rising? What do you do? Well, one of the things it's good to do is just to stop for a moment. Just collect our thoughts and just take a really deep breath. In and out. The out is as important as the in. And just take a moment. And one of the things that I do in that moment is I pray. And I ask God to help me with the situation. Maybe it's something that is really challenging for me. Maybe it's something that is just causing me a little bit of stress in my life. Maybe I'm worried about something else. But what I do is I say a prayer. And you remember that I keep my prayer hands really close to my desk and they're so lovely. And I can put my hands around them and I can pray. And I can just say to God, this situation is really difficult. Will you help me? And you know, something changes in that situation. When I stop trying to be in control of things and let God take control, things change. We're really good in our lives at liking to be in control of things. But actually, one of the things we have to learn as Christians is to let go and to let God. To know that God has a far greater capacity than you or I have. And it doesn't stop us getting stressed or worried or fearful or anxious. All those things are things that we do naturally as human beings, as people. And God made us and God loves us. But sometimes we've just got to take a moment and we can remember this story and that peace. Be still. So let's do that for a moment. Let's take a moment of peace and be still. I wonder what you felt or thought in that time, or maybe you just managed to completely empty your mind. I could hear something really loud over there, but I also felt really peaceful in myself. And sometimes it's really good to notice whether we're feeling quiet and peaceful, not quiet in a sense, but just calm and quiet inside ourselves, or whether we're feeling a little bit like life is a bit choppy, because it is at all times for us. And then maybe we can take that moment of peace, be still. We can say a little prayer to God, and then we can share that concern or that anxiety with somebody else. And I find it always helps to share things. I pick up the phone to a friend and just share something with them, or tell your teacher something that's going on with you. It's really good that we are a school family, we're a school community, and we share life together. So as we think about this story, we think about our peace. Let's pray together. Loving God, we thank you for this amazing story of how Jesus stood in that boat in the midst of a storm and said, peace, be still. Help us today in whatever we are doing, whether we're running around the playgrounds or whether we are quietly reading in our classroom, whether we're playing with a friend or whether we're thinking out how to solve a problem. Help us to know your peace with us today. Help us to know that you are always with us and you are here in our school with us today. And so we say together, Amen. Lovely to be with you again, William G. Yaxley, in this week, and I will see you again next week. Take care and God bless. Bye.